Okay, it's now 12 o'clock, so we're going to get started with this afternoon's webinar. Hello and welcome to everybody joining us. We've got people joining us live this afternoon, but also hello to anybody who's catching us up with the recording after the session. Welcome to this BTS Careers Zone webinar. My name, for anybody who doesn't know me, is Alex Langhorn, and I head up the BTS Careers support team here at BTS. And I'm joined by Scott Stevens, a director from St James's Place. And our goal for the next half hour, 45 minutes is to take a look under the bonnet, if you like, of the St James's Place Financial Advisor Academy, including answering questions from our listeners. So I have had some questions in advance, and anybody who is live on the session, please feel free to use the Q&A function. We'll be able to answer your questions at the end. So do post your questions if you have anything that you'd like Scott to answer directly today. For anybody who doesn't know anything about the BTS Careers Zone, it's an online space that I'd just like to tell you a little bit about before we start. So it's an online community space where we at BTS share, if you like, information, advice and guidance on careers in financial services. As part of this, we do welcome collaborations with firms like St James's Place, firms who are actively recruiting in the sector. Now, we're rather picky at BTS about the firms that we feature because we do insist, and Scott will attest to this, we insist on producing real life, honest content. We really want to cut through, if you like, the spin that's out there in the sector and give our candidates a bit of a fly on the wall insight into the opportunities in the sector, and also give our candidates and our listeners, our users, the opportunity to ask questions that matter to them. So you're more than likely familiar with St James's Place Financial Advisor Academy, as it is one of the largest academies, and it's a very popular choice with BTS exam candidates, particularly our career changers. We do have some of our students who go on to the academy in what we call Term 1 at the academy, and Scott will tell you a bit more about that. After achieving the RO1 and the RO5 exams off their own steam with BTS. But we also work with lots of students who complete the full diploma with us here at BTS and then go on to join the academy in what we call Term 2. So Scott's going to demystify what we mean by the different term start points and help everybody understand the options for joining the academy. Lots of people listening will be familiar with who we are at BTS, and you'll know that we are providers of exam support for the Chartered Insurance Institute diploma, which is the qualification element that you need to have as a financial advisor. Now, full disclosure at this stage, we're not the providers of the diploma training on St James's Place Financial Advisor Academy, but we can say from our experience over the years of working with SJP partners and our own candidates who have gone on to join the academy, that it is a great opportunity for a diverse demographic of people. So that's why we're really thrilled to welcome Scott today to talk to us about the opportunities on the academy, and hopefully break down some myths and answer any bugbears that people might have, any issues they might have whilst they're making decisions about their next steps for their careers. So let's kick off first of all. Welcome, Scott. Thank you for joining me.
Delighted to be, Alex.
Great to have you here. And as I said, we are going to be sort of delving below the glossy literature in this webinar, aren't we, to just talk in a more informal setting about the opportunities and, as I say, answer some of the questions that we've had submitted in advance. So what I'd like to sort of just kickstart with, give you the opportunity, Scott, to give us a bit of an elevator pitch, if you like. What is the Academy all about? And bear in mind this sort of under the bonnet approach we're trying to take here, a bit of a no-nonsense elevator pitch for anybody who might be right at the start of the journey. What is the St James's Place Financial Advisor Academy?
Well, as I said, delighted to be, Alex, and we'll get a no-nonsense approach to this. So at a headline level, the Academy is all about creating the next generation of financial advisors and business owners for what is the UK's largest wealth manager, which is SJP. And I suppose, it's worthwhile delving into a little bit of history because SJP has been around for about 30 years now.
Yeah.
And for 30 years, they've grown by attracting what we would say are the brightest and the best from within the profession. They're already advisors, they're already business owners. And of course, somebody a lot brighter than me 10 years ago thought, well, actually, if we're just fishing in that pool is getting older. So today, Alex, the average age of financial advisor in the UK is about 57, 58 years old. And that is worth repeating, 57, 58 years old. And I know many of your audience here will be a lot younger than that, which we'll talk about that representing, great opportunity. But 10 years ago, somebody thought, well, actually, why don't we start growing our own? And that was the birth of the Academy. And since then, we put about 1,300 people through our programs. And It's now evolved over time to consist of a 4-term program, and you alluded to that at the beginning, of really 12 to 18 months worth of tuition, coaching, and as I said, we'll delve into that before you then go on for a further 2 years in our growth and development area. So that gives you that elevator pitch. It's all about creating that next generation.
Yeah.
And it is really important because if we start to think about, I know you're at the top end of this, Alex. So if I wanted you to have between £50,000 and £5 million of investable assets in the UK, there's about 67, 68 million people in the UK, and those individuals constitute about 13.1, 13.2 million people. We think all of those deserve financial advice. But if we look at, let's say, broad numbers, the 30,000 left in our profession, the average advisor has about 150 clients. So the quick maths, and I know some of you have gotten already much quicker than me, the quick maths means that actually we need 80,000 advisors right now. And we've only got 30,000, so we actually need 50,000 new advisors. So we can no longer, as the UK's largest, just rely on, we'll go fishing in that pool that I spoke about, the experience. We're really hungry for that new talent. And obviously that talks to our partnership with individuals and organisations like yourself.
Wow, I mean, those numbers are huge, aren't they? And you do see them bandied about, but you've just explained them with a bit more detail there and a bit more context, which really helps me see the gap that is there. And obviously, average age of an advisor is 56. I'd say our demographics got really ranges from people who are just coming out into the world of work, right the way through to career changes. As I said in the start, we've got lots of our BTS students are career changers, and they can be in their 30s, 40s, and some in their 50s as well. So all the way through, we have people interested in things like the academy to help them with that. And just talking and picking up on the point you said there about the demographic of people needing financial advice being much broader now than perhaps the perception is. I think that's why it's important for the profession to diversify as well, because financial advice is for such a vast number of people now. It isn't just for the wealthy, if you like, it's for everyday folk as well. So yeah, I think that's really an interesting context to set it in.
Yeah, and of course it's going to be massive growth because there's this whole divesting from bricks and mortar and moving into liquid assets. Because actually, Alex, if you were my sister and we inherited my mum's house, we're not going to live in it together. We're going to sell it, and that's a windfall. So I know I've got to invest that money and put it to work. And that is that's a trend that's going to continue for the next 15 to 20 years. So, it's a brilliant time to think about becoming a financial advisor.
Yeah, and I know one of the questions we want to look at today is what is the role all about, to just try and again demystify the role to help people think about, well, is it for me? So we'll come on to that shortly. So it's definitely something on the list of questions here. But I just for a moment want to zoom in a little bit on the academy, and I've talked already about term 1 and term 2, and how some of our candidates here at BTS do join you in term 1, having secured what you need as sort of the gateway qualifications to get in first, but many of them join you in term 2. So it'd be really helpful if you could just tell us a little bit more about the different stages that you can join the academy. Term 1, term 2, and I believe there's a 3 and a 4 as well. So that would be really helpful.
Brilliant. So I suppose at the headline level, what's the difference between term 1 and term 2? And that distinction is really, really simple. So you join in term 1 if you don't hold the level 4 qualification, either from the CI, CISI, or the LRBF. You start in term 1. If you do have that qualification, you start in term 2. That's the simple answer.
Yeah, and I've just shared a slide there on the screen that you kindly provided for us, and I'll also publish this on our website if that's okay, because it's a really useful one to have a look at. Would you be able to talk us through this one here? This might be a helpful tool.
I'll just give you a whistle-stop tour because I don't want to bore anyone too much, but there's lots of really rich content in each of these. So that term 1, as you said, Alex, people have already arrived with their RO1 and their RO5, and we then teach people through their RO2, 3, 4, and then actually in our term 3, we get them their RO6. And we do this through what we'd say is engaging, accessible, accredited learning content. That's powered by Redmill for us. There's online modules in there, there's virtual classrooms, there's live drop-in surgery. So if people have particular issues, you can actually get on a call with others who are facing similar issues on a particular part of the exam. There's support from leading industry experts and mentors as part of this. And there's bespoke study support for learning differences. So we've had to reflect that over the last couple of years in terms of people's different abilities. And access to the Academy online portal, it's all through that portal, packed with all the learning tools that we've developed. And I would say, we get an 85% on average, 85% pass mark for those obviously exams taking as that RO2, 3, 4, and then 6. So that's term 1. It's 3 months. It's full time. You can't be off doing something else. It's full time. It's a full time commitment, and that gets you effectively then into term 2.
Yeah.
And as you can see there, that term 2 again is currently a 3 month course. I suppose it's worth saying, because I do get often some questions in here, Alex, around, look, the exam is really difficult. Do I need to have lots of financial services experience beforehand?
And maths
and I would say
things like that.
About 60% of our recruits, they're from non-financial services backgrounds. So the answer is demystify it. Do I need to be an academic high flyer? Absolutely not. As I said, we get that 85% pass mark in there, which against an industry average is about 60%. And each of those new partners, and here at SJP, if you're a business owner, it's a bit of jargon for you. As a business owner, you're a partner. Obviously, if you're an advisor working for one of those partners, one of those business owners, you're just an advisor. So each of those new partners and advisors, they get to work with an academy relationship manager who looks after you in terms 1 and terms 2, providing what I'd say is one-to-one exam support where needed. So that's really kind of term 1. Term 2 in there, again, you'll see it's a 3-month full-time commitment. And I suppose the shorthand, because I know this is all about no nonsense, it's really about how you turn all that academic understanding into practical know-how. And that's really, like, for me, sums up term 2. You've got to build and develop both your personal competence in there and your technical competence. And from all those 1,300 that we've pushed through our programs, we now have narrowed that down to believing in a blended learning approach. I think everyone kind of learns slightly differently. You'll know that in terms of what you do as a core competence, Alex. So we've merged in here, blended, face-to-face with digital, and what I then say is immersive, and I'll cover that in a moment. So that face-to-face, the start of term 2, you're going to spend 3 days on a residential course. You're all together, usually in cohorts between 20 and 25. Allows you really to build some community spirit. You're in this together. And we found that really works for us. You spend 3 days together at the beginning, 2 days in the middle face-to-face, and 3 days at the end of that 3-month period. And each of those face-to-face training sessions, if I aggregate them all up, it's about 30 face-to-face training sessions over those days. We then talked about a blended learning approach. That's the digital components. We've got nearly 500 vignettes of content and videos that we've aggregated into box sets. So the best way of describing it, because you'll all be really familiar with Netflix. It's like Netflix all on demand. We've employed professional actors. It's genuinely amazing. And these are supplemented by nearly 100 virtual live sessions. So you get that live element blended in, walk through that program. We've got dedicated specialist trainers. So this isn't a generalist job that you're going to get. These are dedicated specialist trainers that obviously those who have been recruited benefit from. And we also then give people Oculus headsets. I don't know if you've seen those at all, Alex, but it allows you to get into the metaverse. I'm not going to start chanting at you or anything, but
I have seen these,
there you
yes. And I
go.
wondered how that works. I mean, I know that the kids love them, don't they, for their
Yeah.
gaming? But in terms of a professional setting, that's quite interesting, isn't it? What's the rationale behind that? What's the benefit of using a virtual learning environment?
Yes, so it's all about this safe environment, because this is about giving people confidence. So actually what we've created is lots of different scenarios, and they actually end up with about 52,000 different outcomes. It allows you to be observed in the metaverse in a really safe environment to practice. And we all know practice makes perfect. So this is a great way of us obviously looking at that safe environment, encouraging people to get going with it and experiment, being observed, and then you can get real feedback. So we've looked at common scenarios that you'd be faced as an advisor, and obviously found that to be hugely beneficial. And of course, that content in there starts to cover things such as the advice process, how it can be personally effective, like interpersonal skills. Of course, you cover the SJP proposition, client acquisitions, client servicing, our technology, our systems, and for those that are business owners, how do you build a business? So lots and lots of what I say is content wrapped in there, as well as lots and lots of support. And I would say that there's a dedicated period of kind of 3 weeks in there where we fully support the practice, observations, and assessments. I know that for some that you'll be looking at as an audience saying, oh, are there other competitors out there who do this? This is the deepest, richest experience that exists, I think, in UK financial services today. We've invested lots and lots of money in getting this right. And that practice, that observation and the assessments are all part of driving what I'd say is excellence. And that's what we're looking for in here.
So term 2 is very much about that financial planning practice in practice. And that's a question we're often asked around the diploma when people do the complete diploma with us. I've got my diploma. How on earth do I translate that into actually doing the job? Where's the next piece of the puzzle? And obviously the route to competent advisor status is important. It's a regulatory requirement within the qualification framework, but how to achieve that is often the question we're asked. Where do I get that support? So term 2 sounds like that's very much where that starts.
Yeah, that's right. And that's the kind of the big jump from that academic understanding to practical know-how in the safe confines of a nice safe environment in the classroom. Of course, term 3, that step change is, as you said, all about achieving that competent advisor status, which is a regulatory requirement. So this is the first time I can get out there and start seeing some clients. And of course, that ongoing development primarily takes place across SJP's locations. And we've got over 20 of those up and down the country now. And again, that learning is delivered through a blended approach. We've got some core modules that are delivered face-to-face, and we've got some peer group sessions as part of that, and we've got some elective modules that are delivered remotely. And so core modules in there might be things such as advisory skills, so the art of engagement, goals-based planning, how do you present to people, presentation, meeting, masterclass, things like that. We've got client acquisition skills, so the art of networking, client events, how you lay them on, how do you develop business-to-business relationships, and then, of course, those business owners, we've got planning and running a business, business planning, partner structure, budgeting, all of those sorts of things. And you're being observed all the time. So you've got, obviously, in term 3, we move from the academy relationship manager, that relationship you've got, those terms 1 and 2, you get a new specialist, which is an academy development manager, absolutely specialized in observations and feedback. So you get lots of one-to-one support helping you through that. So they will actually, I suppose the best way of describing it would be, it's probably easier for me because my daughter's just had her driving test. And of course, as a dad, I'm now paranoid she's about to go on the motorway. Because of course, in the test, you don't get to go on the motorway. You do your, let's say, term 1, you pass your theory.
And then off you go.
Term 2 is, I've got the driving instructor sitting here, and of course, if something goes wrong, they take control. Well, you're in a safe classroom environment. Absolutely fantastic. Now, if I was to let her loose without any other lessons, straight on the motorway, well, you might say, I'm a really rubbish dad. But this term 3 is, how am I going to drive on the motorway? So you've got that instructor sitting alongside you, now driving on the motorway. And again, that's a huge investment on our part, but we think it's absolutely critical to create what I say the very best financial advisors out. And you need that experience, and you need that constant coaching in order to get better.
Yeah. So for anybody who's just been listening to that, just to sort of summarize some of the things that I think are important to our listeners, if they have already secured the diploma themselves, they've done the RO1 to RO6, they've got that aspect, they can join at term 2 and go from there. It's not a requirement that they've got to have done any of the exams in term 1 first of all. So there is that option to join at a term 2 with the diploma behind you. So for anybody who has self-funded their way through or reached that qualification and is now looking for the next stage and the support to achieve competent advisor status and to start growing their business, that's a valid option. Is it a common thing that people would join at term 2?
So yeah, it is. We've devised inside track. We've devised what we call lanes for different types of recruits. So you might be really experienced as an advisor going into somebody else's practice, and that might be a lane C. Or you might be brand new to wealth. I was playing international rugby yesterday. I haven't got any experience in financial services, but you go through our selection process, etc., and then you can join in term 1. There's obviously a blend in there. But broadly speaking, I would say probably 2/3 of what we see joining in our academy, close to 2/3 will start in term 1, about 1/3 actually starting in term 2. So that's the blend that we see.
Right.
But of course, I'm hoping that many of the audience listening to this will be part qualified or on that journey. This is I'm going to be fully qualified, and I'm hoping to get many more starters in term 2 as a result.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that is really interesting because I'm not sure everybody's aware of the different routes, the different stages that you can join, and it almost seems that no matter where you're at, there's an option to potentially, if it's the right opportunity for you, to be able to slot in. As you say, whether you
Absolutely.
are brand new to the profession with the exams behind you or you've got some experience, there's a lane
Yeah.
for you.
The lane for
Um,
you.
yeah, there is a
I'll
lane.
get
So
off the
find your
driving
lane.
analogy. Don't worry.
Find your
Um,
lane.
and that last term forward, it's simply put, it's all about building a sustainable business and how you succeed and thrive in what we call our partnerships, that collection of, today, 2,500 businesses, 4,800 financial advisors, and they're supported by over 8,000 support staff. So that's what we call the partnership. So how do you stay and thrive within that partnership is all about term four. And then
Yeah.
you alluded to the fact, do you then kind of let everybody go and they go, well, no, the support doesn't stop there. You then go into what we call our growth and development function for a further 2 years. And there's somebody sitting alongside you. They're all ILM qualified coaches, ILM 5 coaches, real expertise in making you obviously stay, making you thrive.
Yeah. Okay. Really, really useful overview, Scott. Thank you. It helped me with my understanding of the different places that people can join as well. Something that we do get asked, and again, it's not something we've got the knowledge to answer at this stage. So I'm hoping you'll be able to help. Obviously, looking at this, I can see there's a time commitment. Definitely, it's a full-time commitment for somebody wanting to join the academy. They need to be able to commit to the full-time program. What other investment is required from somebody who wants to join the academy, and what sort of support is available to help them manage that investment?
Yeah, it's a great question and a really prevalent one, which we often get asked in there. And depending on which lane, we talked about those lanes you join in, there's different levels of financial support. Obviously, as part of this process, you get to meet one of our recruiters. We call them business acquisition managers, and they can talk you through the different options within there. But there is absolutely support, obviously, to get going from the beginning. And I would say in here that, people usually need a bit of a runway in terms of they've got a bit of a war chest that tides them over. But I would say there's enough in there that allows them to get going. And of course, as a business owner, once they get going, they can also start to draw down on other capital that's available to them. I suppose the other side of that coin is, but if you're giving us money, do I have to pay it back?
Yeah.
And of course, this is a massive investment, as you can imagine, on behalf of the organisation to create the next generation of financial advisors. So if you go and take all of our training and then go and join one of our competitors, we will then look to claw back some of those training costs, around to the tune of about £10,000. But recognise we're investing about 50 to 60 in individuals when we say yes to people through selection. But that's only when somebody goes to join one of our competitors. If somebody then drops out, decides actually this isn't for them, then of course we're not looking to claw any of that money back. So this is really around how do we search and seek out the very best individuals, how do we make a brilliant choice in terms of identifying them, engaging them. I know we'll probably come on to individuals' whys and wherefores and how we do that. But significant investment going into the very best individuals to create what I would say are people who are the next generation, the Royal Marines, the next generation of financial advice.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, we always encourage our anybody who's thinking about this to really think about what it is they're looking for before they make that approach. Get all of the information. This information is really useful because it's starting to show our listeners what's involved, what commitments involved, what it's going to look like. It's quite a swift program as well. I think is perhaps an initial reflection. You're going to get through that quite quickly, but it's going to be quite intensive. So really getting your knowledge up to scratch on what's involved. But we also talk to people about understanding why it is they want to do it, because it's very easy to see a great opportunity like this and think, yeah, okay, that's what I'm going to go for because it looks great, but part of the selection process, as you've just alluded to there, is about making sure that fits right and making sure that it's the right route for the person. We've also talked about the different lanes and how we identify where that person fits and what's the right approach for them. So part of the responsibility on the individual is to think about, well, is this right for me and why do I want to do this? So we often talk to our individuals around what's your why? Really interrogate that, have critical thoughts around why do you want to do this and really dig down into that. So having been with with SJP for a long time yourself, you must have come across people who have got really strong whys that have led them to be successful on the academy? Perhaps people that stand out to you from your knowledge and your experience over the years. Have you got any case studies that you could share with us that demonstrate a real strong why that has worked for an individual?
Yes, I suppose at one level there's lots of different stories that I could pull in there, and of course, as you all know, everyone's unique. And there's that brilliant book, isn't there, by Simon Sinek, all around finding a why. So somebody who's kind of struggling in that, it's a brilliant book. I'd thoroughly recommend you go and have a little look at that. But um, I suppose the range in there, because there is a range. It's those that have kind of come and spent a year from their industry, their sandwich course at uni, and spent a year in industry as an administrator, and then they were inspired by their partner, their business owner, for what they built. Others I've met from the military or sports. They've got young families, they live and support them, but they didn't want to be stuck behind a desk all the time. I suppose you did ask me one that sticks in my mind, and there's a bit of inspiration in that. We're about to do a big consumer advertising campaign. We're going to spend a lot of money on that. And some of the inspiration for that was the female that you see in there, who's the partner who'd lost her dad in her 20s, and in helping her mum keep their house and sort their family finances out, she found that she was actually quite good at it. And her driving reason is that she doesn't want someone else to go through what she went through, particularly her mum and that family unit. So that inner drive, I found hugely inspiring. And of course, we referenced that before. Understanding someone's why is a key part of our selection process, because when things get tough, and they always do, it's what people lean into in life is what's going to drive me and motivate me. I lean into that why. I hope that gives you a bit of flavour of the range that we have, and one that actually I kind of remember.
Yeah, yeah. No, so just hearing some of the range there, it's made me think about one of the other questions that I've had submitted this week around perceptions of what an SJP advisor is. And there are obviously perceptions based on what people see and what people think and what people assume. And one of the questions was, is an SJP advisor just a sales role? And that's perhaps quite a critical question, a bit of a sort of devil's advocate question almost. Is it just sales? From what you were just describing there in terms of the why, it sounds like there was more to it for that individual. So if someone was to say to you, is it just a sales role with SJP, what would your take on that be?
Well, firstly, I'd say it's an interesting perception, and some of that for me is born out of the success that SJP's achieved. So others in the profession might look at SJP, second fastest company to ever reach the FTSE 100, got nearly over 1 million clients now, 4,800 financial advisors. And of course, other people look at that through possibly a green-eyed monster of thinking, oh, well, what are they doing that's kind of really different? Mm-hmm. I suppose the proof is always in the eating, Alex. And for me, that's a 95.3% retention rate today. That's quite amazing. And that 0.5, that 5%, some of you might think, well, what do they do with the other 5%? It's because people obviously have invested their money, and of course they then want to live out of that money and take it down over time. So of course clients do leave, but it's because they've taken their money. Yeah. So university, that 95%, over 95% retention rate. The clients love their SJP advisor. I think with regards to kind of the word sales and our profession, I believe that kind of died with the introduction of what is now known as the retail distribution review. It's back in 2012. And for those that might be a younger audience, amongst other things in there, this basically banned commissions. So it used to be actually, the faster I get to the next client, I could sell them what back in the old day was a PEP. I could sell my pension, I'm on to the next one, on to the next one. Well, the FTA equivalent, as was then, banned commission, and they introduced charging clients a fee. And I suppose at the time, Alex, and I used to get quite, I don't know, maybe resentful around solicitors, because they kind of looked down their noses a bit at financial advisors, saying, "Oh, they're just salespeople." Yep. And actually, that whole movement from effectively commissions to then generating fees that clients charge for ongoing advice moved the relationship. And today, that role as a financial advisor is far more about building great client relationships. And I now look at solicitors who, you went through a divorce, they're not knocking on your door in 6 months' time saying, "Have you met someone yet?" Because there might be another divorce on the cards. Or, "I've done a bit of probate for your dad. Is your mum okay? Is she feeling a bit ill?" Looking for the next bit of business. Now, obviously, I'm joking at that level, but we now have genuine relationships with clients. And so on one side, I think of that role as quantitative, So this is all about asset allocation, industry and technical insights, things like financial planning, tax and estate planning, all of that quantitative stuff. The qualitative stuff is all around that relationship, wealth education, succession planning, looking at people's lifestyle, helping them. We talk about financial coaches now. And at the heart of that, for me, it's invaluable advice, which is built around personal relationships. So I hope that gives you the full answer, which is there's an SJP, I think, green-eyed monster, because they've done so well. But actually, the whole profession, that disappeared in terms of it's just sales, and is now far more about your ability to build great relationships with clients. And I've got lots of examples of that.
Thinking about what you were saying there about the role of an advisor and how it is so much more now across the piece than a sales role. And even within SJP, where, as you say, the green-eyed monster may be that it's still a sales role over there, it's absolutely not. You talked a lot about personal relationships and how that's so important. So coming back to so an individual thinking about joining the academy and becoming part of the SJP brand, when you do that selection, obviously you look for the exams, you look for people who can achieve that pass grade. You've got your 85% pass rate at the minute, so you're looking for people who can get through these exams quickly. But clearly, you're looking for something else as well. You've talked about the personal relationships there. So, what is it that you're looking for in an ideal candidate for somebody thinking about joining?
Yeah. So, again, a great question. A really obvious one that we get asked a lot, and we've created an acronym which I think has been overtaken by another movement now called Pride. And Pride for us is that personal impact. So, do they have the ability to walk into a room and create some personal impact? We've then got resilience as part of that, because I said this isn't for everyone. We're looking for people with that special drive that can bounce back, overcome resilience, lean into some of that wide.
Yeah.
Obviously, integrity. This role is all about amplifying and accelerating trust. You're really responsible for people's money in there, so you need to have that integrity. You're then kind of leaning to the drive. You've got to really want to do this stuff. That's that acronym across, as I would then say, a pride, and you then need lastly that empathy. If it's about relationships, you've got to be able to put yourself in somebody else's shoes. So we look for those attributes, and as part of our selection process, we use obviously interview rounds. You'll get to meet one of our business acquisition managers, and as that journey with us is as much to work out whether you're right for us as effectively we are right for you. And we've really improved that over the years. It used to be, we'll just get everybody in and see how we go. Well, we know that doesn't work. And we often talk about positively changing lives. And of course, if we get people in, it doesn't work out for them, we haven't possibly changed their lives. So we've got to get it right. And a big part of that is that selection process. And part of that, we now use psychometric testing in there, really around Hogan. You may have heard of that. It's quite expensive, but we find it allows us to ask really insightful questions that really gets people to search inside themselves. Is this really for them? And I play that all the way back to, it's because we invest a lot of money in someone to make them the very best they can be as a financial advisor.
Yeah, yeah. Would you say then that there's a typical advisor at SJP? Or we've talked about some of the different stories you've experienced, but is there a typical advisor, stereotypical SJP advisor?
I would say no, because they're all really different. And I talked about this 2,500 different businesses, and they've all been set up slightly differently. Some are our own branded, some of those are SJP branded. But I would say the one thing that they've got in common, Alex, is that they've got a genuine desire to really help people. And I guess in my time here, I've seen that manifested in so many different ways. I've actually got a whole series of videos in production with advisors and their clients talking about how their advisor genuinely helped them in different life scenarios. I've also seen it with advisors consistently going, above and beyond. I had one the other day actually where the advisor was asked to go along with a slightly elderly client to go and buy their car because they didn't trust anybody else to help them do that. So for me, it's really a mindset of really wanting to help. There isn't a typical one, but that's the unifying thread that I would draw through all of them.
And a question that's just actually popped through on the Q&A. I know we sort of deal with some of them at the end, but this one I think is quite relevant just now. Do you need to be entrepreneurial to be successful as an SJP advisor? So do you need that entrepreneurial spirit?
So I would say absolutely, as a business owner, that's a leap. And if you've always had a desire to own something yourself, you've had enough of your boss, and that's an inner drive. You've always wanted to do that. I think we've got the best platform that's out there to launch a business, a client-facing business. So you absolutely need it for launching your own business. I would also argue you need that entrepreneurial spirit as an advisor as well. Many of the roles, as you all know, are self-employed. There's a growing number of employed positions that you'll see in the profession. But you need that entrepreneurial spirit to get going because you're effectively building something with a client base. You know, when Alex, you become my client, that's me being entrepreneurial because I want lots of other people who look like you.
Yep.
And of course, it's quite finite. And we've seen that, and we'll probably come on to discuss some of the profession's news that's out there. We've seen it when, you know, if you've got too many clients, you can't service all of them. So actually, if you've got a finite number that you can really service, you've got to make sure you build that cohort as you want to see it.
Yeah, yeah.
Great question.
Yeah, it is a good question. It's prompted another one actually from somebody who's just asked, and it probably could be a yes or no answer, this one. Are all the advisors within SJP self-employed, or are there employed routes as well?
So the answer is no, they're not all self-employed. There are definitely employed routes too. And I actually see that growing over time, the number of employed routes that are out there. And I think that individuals who are faced with those really need to weigh that up themselves. Because of course the benefit is if you start your own business, and you know, part of our business model is we've got the largest ecosystem of buyers and sellers in the profession. So for us, that's called the business sale and purchase. And what that means is you can grow your business at SJP, and when the time comes for you to hang up your boots, we then often then help the next generation fund to buy into some of those practices. So you might be thinking, oh, I love the safety net of an employed position, but actually you're limiting your earning capacity. And actually, if you can get going and demonstrate actually you can be successful, SJP will loan you the money to go and buy a retiring advisor's book of business. And we've got hard-coded facts in here of how quickly that accelerates the value that somebody can build, obviously for themselves, obviously their future loved ones. So, you know, we are seeing a growing number of salaried positions, but that entrepreneurial spirit is alive and kicking. And as I said, we're very conducive to that because of our large BSP program that we have.
Yeah, really great question there. Thank you. That was from Daniel. I'm really getting a sense of the variety through chatting with you here, Scott, which is really great for me here at BTS as well, to be able to talk to individuals one-on-one about their thoughts around whether this is the right thing for them. But I'm really getting a sense of sort of the variety of different advisors that are part of the framework, the variety of ways into the academy, which is really quite eye-opening. So I'm finding that really, really interesting. And also the different reasons why people would want to do this, and how the role can be designed to fit around those reasons and those goals.
And what's quite interesting there, Alex, because it is a myth that's out there, is that, oh, well, when you get to SJP and you come through the academy, you're just an autonomo, as in, you know, you're just yet another advisor. Well, no,
just a sausage factory.
Each of those 2,500 businesses, as I said, some of them, you know, utilize, you know, up in lights the SJP logo. But you know, a big number of those say, actually, no, I want it to be called, you know, Alex and Sisters, or, you know, Scott and Sons, with their own branding, their own look and feel. They're utilizing our systems, our processes, all the kind of love, care, and attention we have around that, and all the investment that we've made in, you know, what I would argue is, you know, the greatest proposition that sits out there today. But they're doing it their way, and of course, some of them are specializing. Well, I only help, you know, folks in as doctors. Others say, actually, I want to help divorcees because I've got that real why to help. So it's amazing the variety. And that's kind of surprised me when I kind of came to SJP. I just thought, oh, it all look the same. It's kind of SJP-ified. No, they're all individual businesses with their own unique sets of whys and drivers.
And I think that's really coming across to me as well in some of the things I've learned from today so far. So really useful stuff. So what I'd just like to move on to now, because I'm aware of the time. We're heading towards the end of the session. There's a couple more questions that people have asked me this week, and obviously we've talked about this in advance of the session as well. We've talked about how important it is to recognise the role that the media plays when you're making these decisions, because obviously if you want to join a firm like SJP, you're going to be looking at doing your due diligence and looking in the press and reading the reports, and as there always is with a large organisation, there's the good news stories and there's the not so good news stories. And even more so this week, SJP featuring in the press related to the work of their advisors and some historic issues that have come to light through the financial report that was actually published on the 28th of February, so very, very new. The reason I want to raise this, I think it's really important that we just put it on the table. We're not going to delve into the ins and outs of the report today because it's not the forum. But for anybody who's thinking about this route and has seen the news and has read anything online around what's happening at the moment and has got concerns and worries, what advice would you give to them to help them navigate that and unpick what matters to them and what's important and sort of get through the fluff of all of the news reports? What would your advice be?
Well, as you said, it's a really salient question. And at the heart of it always, before you make a move, you've got to really understand what you're getting into. And part of that for me is really understanding the details. So I suppose a headline level, for those not familiar, the big announcement is that SJP put aside about 426 million pounds to carry out a review and pay redress to clients where there's a lack of evidence that ongoing servicing has actually been delivered in the past. So probably three things I would say on that. Firstly, 426 million is a really big number, so it's always going to attract that headline attention of it. I think secondly, it's always about doing the right thing. It's part of our DNA, it's part of our culture. We've actually got a culture wheel with that written on it, and we've initiated the review. So we haven't been asked to do it. They've said you have to do this. We'd seen a rising level of complaint levels over the last year. And in looking into those, we found that in some cases, the evidence of ongoing client servicing was less complete, particularly in the years before we introduced Salesforce, which we did back in 2021. So that's our centralized record. So it's really easy to track that. But before then, I might have kept all my records on a spreadsheet. And then I dropped the spreadsheet, and now I can't evidence an ongoing review. So we need to take action to put that right for clients. Mm-hmm. So we put in place a program now to refund clients where we think it's appropriate. So that's the second thing. And thirdly, this is not an issue that's unique to SJP. In fact, this is profession-wide, Alex. And the FCA have now written to the top 20 advisory businesses, asking them the same question actually SJP asked ourselves, which is, can you evidence that clients have been receiving an ongoing service that they've been paying for? And of course, what we have to remember in here is, well, 426 million is a big chunk of money. We must be really well funded financially because we put that aside as a reserve to address any recompense to clients. So for me, that's a massive demonstration of the strength and stability. And a lot of this, I would say, is retrospective regulation. So you need to be with large organizations that are well funded to ride out some of these elements. Mm-hmm. I think secondly in there, we're the leader in our field. We've got nearly 1 million clients now trusting us with their financial futures. So it's right that we go first and lead. And personally, I'm really proud that we've done that. And of course, you'll know as well as I do, in being first, if you're the first to take action, we naturally take all the brunt of the headlines. You'll see little articles written about some of our competitors that will come out probably over the next couple of months. Mm-hmm. But of course, when you go first and it's right that we lead, you're going to get the lion's share of that press attention. So the honest answer is do your digging. Hopefully that explains where we've got to. It doesn't mean those clients haven't been serviced. It's about finding evidence to prove that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and obviously being the first, it's had an impact in terms of the market as well for SJP. So for anybody who's concerned about that, what's the message at the moment around the future for an SJP advisor, given the downturn in the market for as the I guess a lack of faith occurs, doesn't it, when things like this happen, which then impacts the market.
So that obviously the share price is all driven by supply and demand of what people think are the values of their shares. And obviously, personally, I think that's an overreaction. That's a personal view. It's not an SJP view. And that's just the share price. Very different from a really well-capitalized business that has that ecosystem infrastructure that's set up to support 2,500 business owners and all their advisors. So you really need to disaggregate SJP as the stock from joining SJP as an advisor, then goes into them working, practicing somebody else's individual business, and they're not directly tied together. Obviously, it would be if SJP were to fail and we're no longer providing the support and services, but we're really well capitalized. So this is actually just a moment in time in terms of reflected in share price, nothing to do with the future of our financial advisors.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. And as we said, it's important to look at a breadth of sources and to check the facts and to look at the different opinions and to interrogate it. We've talked about having a critical eye all the way through from your own why do you want to do it right the way through to things like this.
Yeah,
And it is important, I think, to at this stage, as we sort of come to the close of the session, to look at the flip side. And although the critique at the minute is around servicing clients and the service that clients have received, year in, year out, SJP are voted for by consumers, by customers, as a leading provider. So some of the awards that you've got listed on your website at the moment: Best Financial Advisor for the Personal Finance Awards, Consumer Champion of the Year for Money Age Awards, and these are annual awards that are secured on a regular basis. So, as we say, as voted for by consumers. So there's a flip side. There's the two sides, isn't there?
there is.
You can't win those awards if you are not ticking the boxes for a vast
That's
number
right.
of your clients, and so it's just looking at all evidence, I think, is really important.
It is, and the proof, as I said, is in the eating. Nearly 1 million clients, and all the feedback we get from our own customer service is everybody loves their SJP partner or advisor. And then at the heart of that is kind of three things for me. It's driving that, which is the culture, the way we do things. When I'm out and about, I see partners advisors working really hard for their clients day in, day out. It's the spirit of the partnership. It's something we talk a lot about, which is partners wanting to help one another.
Yeah.
And then the other big pillar for me is around responsible business. We want to be a 100-year company. And that's why, when I look at that negative press coverage, I get disgruntled, but I'm also proud because we've gone first.
Mm-hmm.
But that responsible business is we do the right thing, because in doing the right thing, we believe we'll be that 100-year company.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are coming to the end of the session now, as I said, and I think we've covered a lot of the questions that have been submitted via the Q&A. So if anybody does have any other last-minute burning questions, feel free to drop them in the Q&A whilst we're wrapping up. But I want to thank you, Scott, for taking the time out of your day to come and talk to us candidly about the experience at SJP, your own experience as well, which has been a nice insight, and also for demystifying some of those questions around what it means to join the Academy. I'm hoping that our listeners have found some useful information in here as well. And I just want to finish off really by saying there really is so much information in the public domain, which can sometimes feel overwhelming, contradictory. So it's really important to do your own research, including things like this webinar, and think as critically as possible about what is important to you as an individual. And for anyone considering St James's Place Financial Advisor Academy as an option for themselves, chat to us here at BTS. We're always happy to talk to you about your ideas. Explore the opportunities available. Have a look on the Careers Zone at the information that SJP are going to be producing over the coming months, because this webinar is the first of many pieces of content that we're going to be sharing with the help of the team there at the Academy, including some of the advisor stories that you talked about there. We'll be sharing some of those via our website. So as I said at the start, the goal for us is really to give people under the glossy brochure, what else do we need to know to find out more about what it's really like, so that before you commit to something as intensive as that program that we saw at the start, you've got a real good sense of what you're getting into and whether it's right for you.
And Alex, those bands that I talk about, those 44 recruiters we've got, they can introduce individuals to people who've gone through the program or people with a bit more experience. And I've always in my life found it's much easier when you start talking to people who've got real life experiences with it. And as I said, this is about positive change lives. It's a big deal. So do your due diligence.
Absolutely. Well, I think we've answered everybody's questions. So all that remains now is to say thank you very much again, Scott. Thank you to everybody for listening. We will be wrapping up the session now and releasing a recording for people to watch on catch up. But again, anybody who wants to get in touch with us directly at BTS to chat through their ideas, please do. Thank you, everybody.